think we're live. Can you guys hear me? I assume you can. Am I going brain dead? One sec. Could be my audio settings. It's probably just Discord. Yeti stereo. Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, just checking because I can't hear you, Xiphumor. Yeah, I literally can't hear you. Death, you can't hear Xiphumor either, right?
No.
Okay.
Testing, testing.
Okay, there we go.
Is that better?
Yeah. Yes, sir. That works. So I think we're live right now. So
Great.
That's good, probably. Yeah, we're live. You can't hear Xiphumor either, right? Great. So
Cool.
what were we? Should I record? Should I also record Death, or you think just live stream is good and that's enough? And then we can they can download the live stream.
I think downloading the live stream should be fine enough.
Great. Then let's get started. Welcome. This is episode 5 of RPGeez, presented by Table Topics. I'm your host, Alex Pravden. We have your fellow co-host, Death. And today our guest is Xiphumor. How would you pronounce that?
I mean, I can just go by my actual name.
All right, let's hear it.
If you want to.
Yeah, my name is Clark Peterson.
Clark Peterson. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Let's get into it then. Let's do it.
Yep.
So, screens are being shared. Great.
Yep.
Let's hear some words.
Well, what do you want to talk about?
Clark.
Okay, so what are our options here? Personal growth, watching, listening to right now, most hated rule, recent session stories, RPG, horror stories.
How are the wife and kids? How's the weather?
How are the wife and kids? Wife and kids are pretty great. Yeah, the infant just turned 4 months, and the oldest is 2. Get to be a girl dad. It's so awesome. Weather is getting hotter. I'm in Texas, so we've already had what most people would consider summer, and now we are moving into hell.
Super summer, some would call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So wife and kids, weather covered. Anything else you want to cover, or would you like to move on?
We can move on.
Okay. Enough small talk.
Okay. That was a quick one.
I was a quick one. Yeah. Let's hear a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am Clark Peterson. I am the founder of Speaks and Spells Publishing, TTRPG design, focusing mostly on Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, or A5E if you're in the community. But my most recent project is expanding out to cover 5th Edition, both 2014 and 2024, as well as we're doing Tales of the Valiant cross-compatibility, which is exciting to juggle all of those systems together. But I think we're going to swing it. Yeah, and my big project right now is a project called Wild Magic Reimagined, which is taking the core system of Wild Magic that everyone loves, and then taking all of the little iterations and improvements that people have suggested and wanted over the years, and saying, what if we did those all at once? So what if we took every way that people have tried to fix Wild Magic and actually brought them all together into one cohesive, super flexible, customizable system?
That's a great question, and I did not know that we were having a juggernaut on the show. So welcome. Yes. Can you say what your first and last name is again? Because I don't want to just have you out here as Xiphumor.
Oh, sure. My name is Clark Peterson. Clark
Peterson.
spelled with an E at the end.
Great.
With an E at the end?
Yep, it was my grandmother's maiden name, and it's a more common variant in Ireland.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, so you got your name, studio alias, first exposure to TTRPGs?
Yeah. So I would say like the first real thing that happened was it was 2020, and my wife and I had, well, at the time we had just gotten engaged, and we started looking for an apartment.
Yeah.
And we found one, but we weren't going to move into it together immediately, so we were trying to find somebody who would fill the gap. I put out an ad on Facebook. Only one person replied. His name is Ellis. He's now my best friend, and so on and so forth. We don't have to go into all the details of that. But the important thing is that as that friendship was developing, after living with me and getting to know Annie and us getting to know his girlfriend, now wife, he eventually pitched us on trying out a D&D campaign with him. He was an experienced game master.
Okay.
So he started with the strong pitch of just pulling out the Eberron world map and saying, like, this is where I want to bring you. And so we jumped into that pretty quickly, and I got obsessed pretty quickly. And it was, it was only so many sessions in that I started to say, like, what if I maybe ran a one-shot? And what if that one-shot was actually a campaign? And what if I...
Yes, dude, COVID was a huge catalyst for me. Like, it was COVID that triggered, like, the game master within me and the game designer within me, like, actually. It sounds like it was similar for you and your friend as well.
Yeah. In some sense, it would have happened without COVID. But that was the time that it happened, and I was lucky to be able to have a group that I could play with in person. And I'd sort of been introduced to Dungeons & Dragons a little bit before then, but, like, not really. And that was definitely the moment that kicked it off into a full obsession. So.
Yeah, dude, it is an obsession. Like, for me, it is as well. Death, I'm sure. Death, how would you say COVID had an impact for you with the hobby, or not really?
No, but that's because I was still full-time, because I was essential worker, so it didn't really affect me.
Got it. Okay. So how many hours a week do you play Game Master and Design to RPGeez? Because you're also a husband and father, right?
Yes. I wish I could play more. It's been a little bit since we've really been able to play. We're at the stage of life where there's a lot of pregnancies and a lot of times where we might try to schedule something, and then my wife describes it as, like, when she's pregnant, the creative part of her brain just kind of turns off, and then it's kind of a similar thing with her best friend who's pregnant right now. Wow. And so we haven't been able to play as much as I would like to. That being said, every once in a while we do get to sneak in something fun. A little while ago, a couple weeks ago, her family was up, and we got to play Signs. Have you ever played Signs?
No.
Actually,
what is
just
that?
Sign. Sign is a really interesting RPG, and it is, I think, a great one to introduce non-nerdy people to as like a way to bridge what the game of, like, a role-playing game can be like. I first played it at Gen Con, and the premise of the game is that you play as a bunch of deaf Nicaraguan school children in the 1970s. It's based on true events, and the game is played in silence. And over the course of the session, you develop a sign language together.
Wow.
And it's fascinating. And my wife didn't play it, but she was in the other room and, like, watching the rest of the family play. And she'd comment on just how bizarre it was that there'd just be silence, and then suddenly people would burst out laughing. And she was just seeing us making all these crazy gestures that to us have become meaningful and, like, started to develop in jokes. Yeah. So that was a really great thing. And we had one person who came down and was just like, I'll pop into this, but I might just be here for an hour, and then I'll probably pop back out. Ended it by saying, like, that was the most fun I've ever had. When can we play again?
That's usually how it goes, honestly.
Yes.
Great. Great answer. I think the right answer to how many hours a week you play Game Master Design is as much as you want, and hopefully not enough, right?
Yeah. I get to design a fair deal more, especially since I work in tech support, so a lot of my job is kind of, if there's not a huge call volume going on, I end up with a fair deal of free time, and I can be on my laptop, while I'm taking calls. And so it's a really great position to be in for sneaking in those spare moments and pulling up my spreadsheet and being like, okay, like, what can I get done in the interviewing time?
I used to work in IT, so I completely understand what you're talking about, dude. It's similar. It's not the same, but okay. Last one. What are your goals in the industry and as a designer?
How do I make this concise?
Broadly speaking.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think it would be marvelous to really take off and be able to, I'll get a little bit more specific. These days, what I've been really interested in is designing for communities and games that are not necessarily, maybe Dungeons & Dragons adjacent, but have their little spin-offs and variants. So things like Level Up, things like Tales of Valiant, DC-20, we're seeing Daggerheart, Raw Steel, all those kinds of games where they're not necessarily the largest audience, but the people who are into those games are really, really passionate and devoted to those games. And so what I would love to see, and what I'm hoping to sort of experiment a little bit with, as I'm working on Wild Magic Reimagined, is like, is there enough of a community, and can we like cobble together enough support to do really impressive projects for these like smaller communities, in a way that rivals some of the big projects that you see for D&D?
The answer is yes.
I think there is a path.
Yes.
I think it's not necessarily an easy path, and I think like cross compatibility is going to be a big part of it. But I think like if we can get in the right networks and we can get the word out in the right way and get the right stakeholders involved, I really think that I think people are sleeping on the potential of some of these smaller communities, and people talk about like the RPG space really shattering in the wake of like the OGL and however many other scandals WotC likes to pump out. And like there's a point to that, but I also think that doesn't have to spell the end for these really kind of cool and expansive projects.
We're speaking right now because we all believe the answer is yes.
Yeah,
we see the potential. Yes, there's a lot of slack to be picked up and a lot of opportunity, I would say, and the community, right? Great. Charisma check. What kind of stories do you want your game system to tell?
My answer to that is your stories. And my reason for this is, I'm getting ready to launch a crowdfunding campaign. And, I think many people in this space, scrolled through endless Kickstarters and been so attracted to the things that they see and inspired by the kind of success people bring up. But there's only been so many that I've really funded. And the part of the reason for that is that I'd look at things, and so many of the major tabletop role-playing game projects out there that aren't introducing a completely new systems are generally setting or theme guides. So the big example would probably be Crooked Moon, which went really, really hard on that folklore setting, and it did really well for them, and that's great for them. But there's a part of me that's this is great, and I'm sure there's really wonderful things in there. I kind of want to tell my story, and if I were to get this, I would use it as something to pillage ideas from rather than to use whole cloth. And so when I think about the kinds of projects and products that I like to design, I like things that focus much more on giving people the options and tools necessary to create their own worlds rather than trying to say, this is my world, would you like to come and play with it? It's let me give you the tools to make your world better.
I agree with you. I also do think that practically speaking, people need a start somewhere, right? So I think even if you're setting agnostic, I do think having a base example of everything is very helpful.
No, absolutely. And obviously a lot of these settings and stuff are beloved. And I certainly don't hold it against anyone. I just know that, I have to design for the way that my brain works. And that being said, I feel like there probably will be a setting that I write someday, because it's a little bit too tantalizing to really get into the weeds and details.
Yes.
But I always like to try to prioritize, even if I am going to be pitching my vision, I want it to be something that is easy to adjust and to mold into your vision. Maybe a great specific example of how I've seen this done is 8.5e has a setting called Zeitgeist. And one of the wonderful little things that they do is they've got 6 major nations in that world. But if you look at the world map that they have officially in the book, there are just spaces that are minor states. And the book says, we don't actually define what's here. Use these spaces to put in little countries that need to exist in your world. And that's a great way of giving people a really solid structure to build off of, while leaving enough open space that's intentionally blank space on the canvas for you to make that world your own.
Intentional. Yes. Amazing charisma check. You passed. That was at least an 18 out of 20, if higher. You probably have a +5 or whatever system. This is one of my favorite segments. Crunchy or creamy? Do you prefer chunky or creamy peanut butter?
This is something where I have wavered throughout my life. Historically, creamy has won out most of the time as far as peanut butter. That being said, grown older and more sophisticated in my taste. I sometimes do like a little chunky, especially for toast. That being said, most of the way that I have peanut butter these days is in smoothies. And so creamy is going to be the winner in a smoothie usually.
Okay, we're not talking smoothies. We're talking real sandwich, real use, typical.
I think in a real sandwich these days, I'm going to go crunchy.
Okay.
I think I've come to. I was such a picky eater as a small child, and I've really, really grown to the opposite extreme, where now I'll eat just about anything, to the point that it impresses some of my friends who are much pickier than I am.
Well, I'm glad that you've chosen the right side and the mature side. I'm glad that we agree on that, as adults, right? So
neither option is good.
No,
both options are bad.
Both options are good, and crunchy is better objectively.
As the person allergic to peanut butter, both options are bad.
Well, your opinion is invalid here because you don't even consume it. Anyway,
yeah.
Well, we'll see.
My opinion is more valid.
How about this? Why don't you try it and then use an EpiPen and then tell me what you think? We'll do it on a live stream. We'll do it on a live stream.
No, it's not even just that I'm allergic. I have actual trauma about that shit. But let's go out.
Okay, well, hey, we'll unpack the trauma.
Okay, so you'll save it for when you get like 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
Right?
So we'll do 1,000 subscribers.
What is the peanut butter story? Like, what do you mean you have trauma about peanut butter?
So during the 1K special,
are you crunchy or creamy?
Yeah. So okay, and then crunchy or creamy game system. What would you say is your preference there? And what would you say is?
I have the real temptation to lean towards crunchy.
Right.
And like I frequently, like one of the things that I've designed as for Level Up Advanced 5th Edition was I wrote advanced language rules. Where I'm just like, languages are a point that really gets glossed over, and it's not clear how to do them well. And so I came up with a whole system for, it's like if you want languages to play a bigger part in your game, like how do we do that and how do we tie them into the existing rules? And that's not always good. I'll come right out and say that. I will also come out and say that there's some premier systems that have really caught my eye lately.
Yes.
The big one there being the Legend in the Mist system. Okay. I'm not usually, I've checked out a couple of different Powered by the Apocalypse games, haven't always been grabbed by them. And Legend of the Mist, it's rooted in City of the Mist, which is more closely rooted Powered by the Apocalypse. They've modified it a little bit, and I think that the innovations that they've made are just really, really clever and elegant. And there are just things that you can do in a smooth system that sometimes you can't do in a crunchy system.
Yes. I do want to say, so okay, let's say this. D&D is what out of 1 to 10? 10 crunchy, 1 creamy. Where is it?
Let's put I feel like it's about a 6.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
And then where are your current projects or your previous projects or future projects?
I think my current project is probably about 7.5.
Okay.
I'm taking something that's especially with Wild Magic Reimagined, I'm taking something that was decently presented.
Yes.
I think in Dungeons and Dragons, enough that so many people have fallen in love with it. And I'm like, I really think that we can make this stronger if we can just throw a couple more rules in there. And there's a cost to that. It does take a little bit longer for me to explain. It's not going to fit on 2 pages of a single subclass.
But I think your opinion.
Yeah, I think that the storytelling is worth it in that case. And that's sort of always the trade-off is how much are you giving and taking in terms of storytelling capacity versus the burden on the players and on the narrator.
The fun to burden ratio, or the fun to BS ratio, fun to process, right?
Yes.
Fun, yes. Fun per minute. Trademark. All right, let's move on to the next segment. Unless you want to say anything else.
I think we're good.
All right. Hot takes. Death, you have your dice? Or no?
4.
Mechanical nightmares.
Mechanical nightmares. Could you talk a little bit more about what you're thinking for here, so you can just stir my brain?
I can give an example. Sure.
Sure, just a quick one for you.
Mechanical nightmares. So, statistics can be a mechanical nightmare as a game designer sometimes. I think
trying to.
Yeah.
Trying to balance, say, a dragon against a
yeah.
goblin as your tier 1 evolutions.
Yeah, so like
That
exactly.
was a freaking
So
nightmare.
in terms of things that are like just really hard to mechanically like work out.
Yeah, balance or just to like work mechanically. Either so like
Or
from a
get it to
balance.
feel
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Get it right, balance it, fun it, efficiency
Oh, how
it.
about this? Let's talk about survival
Oh
in
Ooh,
boy.
like most fantasy adventure games.
I like
Here's
Okay.
where you're going.
here's my hot take on survival.
Okay.
Um, there have been a lot of attempts to get it right, but I think that there's so many admirable things that people have done, but I think fundamentally the problem with survival in most like heroic fantasy RPGs is that heroic fantasy works from a base foundation of like abundance where you are an exceptional person, you have exceptional means and powers, maybe not exceptional compared to the threats you face, maybe that's something you have to work up to, but compared to the average person, if you were to take if you were to replace yourself with an average person on the street, the world would be worse off in a fantasy RPG. And survival as a genre that can be enjoyed works from a place of scarcity where you are worse off than average, where you have fewer resources.
Yes.
And so the conflict that people keep running into whenever they try to do survival in a heroic fantasy RPG,
Yeah.
is that fundamental notion where you're trying to put people in a position where they are really strained for resources in a game system that wants them to explore power fantasies.
Yes, and I do think for an ideal survival game that you should not lean into the power fantasy so much. And I think if anyone is even considering doing something survival-esque, watch the show Primal because it's one of the best examples I've seen of like a gritty, brutal survival experience.
All of this being said, I think the conclusion to draw from that is not to despair for like the potential of survival in RPGs.
Yeah.
I think the conclusion to draw from that is that there is like an open niche in the market for a
Yes.
survival focused RPG.
Yes.
Right? We see it like there's so many great survival video games.
Yes.
The nut you're gonna have to crack is that survival requires bookkeeping. It just does. It's about resource management. It's about
there's a game that I made and might like make it to a larger extent. It's a hack of Kids on Brooms called Kids in Caves. So it's less about survival, but it's a caveman-esque game, and you can't say words over their certain length. There's a word size limit.
Oh, I love that.
So if you say words on 6 letters, if you keep doing that, there's like penalties, and if you keep doing it, then your tribe will banish you or kill you, like just straight up. Right. So
like poetry for Neanderthals.
Yeah, I mean, people always mention that game whenever I mention, so that's a good sign. But yes, well, let's move on. Unless you want to do another hot take. Do you want to do another one, or you're good?
I think that's good for now.
I agree. We have some more to talk about. The table topics topic table. We're here. All right. Roll a d6, please, Death.
I muted myself by mistake. That's 5.
All right. Narrative and social. I did not fix the button, by the way, from the previous episode. Oh, damn.
You mean the 4 episodes?
Hey, we have 2 people in chat. I am elated.
Oh boy. Are there any social narrative or role-playing mechanics?
In like Wild Magic Reimagined?
Yeah. Or just in general, like, do you enjoy those kind of mechanics? Because you do have multiple projects, so...
Yes, I do have multiple projects. There's a number of things that I've written before that I have not talked about yet.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest ones that's relevant here is I ran a huge collaboration, huge by the standards of the community anyways, called Venture Forth. And I got like 10 other different designers to all pitch in on this, and we like cranked it out in like a month. It was crazy. But it was a big expansion on really what might be my favorite part of Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, which is the idea of what we collectively call exploration knacks. And they're flavorful little abilities that are given to every class that give them interesting and meaningful things to do outside of combat. And I friggin' love that.
Yes.
Because
that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. D&D needs more than that, and that's why I love it. Because I look at my wife is a wonderful, intelligent, creative person in so many ways.
Is she watching? Is
But
gonna...
she.
I'm just kidding.
What?
I was just
No.
But she oftentimes gets to her character, and she says like, I have trouble imagining what my character would do in a given situation. And like our instinct in those kinds of situations, like look at your character sheet for inspiration. But if your character sheet is all combat, then like you're in downtime, or you're trying to just persuade your way into the palace, and it's just not clear what you should be doing except for like resorting to violence. And there's certainly like not going to bash anyone for resorting to violence in a fantasy RPG. That's fantastic. But my wife loves playing like characters with high charisma, and so like giving you just little like specific hooks. I should give an example. So like there are simple things like I wrote one of them for the project called Wizard's Wisdom, and it basically just says, hey, as a wizard, you can always use intelligence on insight checks. So you can play into the fantasy of being Gandalf, and you don't need to invest like heavily into your wisdom score in order to like sit down and like have that conversation with Frodo, where you give him advice and you understand what's in his soul. Or for another one, one of the other designers wrote one that we wound up calling, I think, If All You Have Is a Hammer. And it basically said, if you can come up with a way to use a weapon in place of a tool to do, say like you're going to use a spear to like prop up a collapsing cave, or you are going to take your dagger and like pick a lock, you can use your attack check bonus instead of like the normal skill that you would use. And that's just such a really flavorful and evocative way that like interacts with the mechanics and gives you a real benefit to leaning into like the core tropes of your character. And so I think that so many games neglect the giving real mechanical weight to the narrative and social level. And there's temptation, and a lot of people say that they would prefer, to just be more open-ended and have that be more of a natural flowing conversation. And that can work for a lot of groups. But I think that for a lot of people, they benefit more from having something to go off of.
yes.
And if that can make you feel badass, like outside of combat as well as in combat, like let's feel badass as often as we can. I think that's what I'm here for.
Combat is one dimension of roleplay, one state of being, right? What percent of an RPG overall would you say is combat?
That depends on your table. But okay, so this is a related topic, but one of the things that I found that you frequently need to distinguish when asking any kind of question about RPGs is like, are you asking the question from the perspective of a designer or from the perspective of players and GMs? Because the same question will get two different answers.
Let's do separate. Both. Either.
Both. For designers, for most of the like major games out there, like especially if we're like giving extra weight but to D&D like systems for just their popularity, like it's upwards of 80%. I feel like you look at any class, and the majority of things that they can do are things that are relevant after initiative is rolled. And then like they've got skills to kind of cover the rest of the blanket. But like when we actually play games, like the narrative portion, there's so many games where like combat doesn't happen because maybe we've got something planned, but the game you end up spending longer talking to the NPC than you thought you would, or just because some game masters prefer that way. I've had players come to me and say like, combat's my least favorite part of D&D, but I love the game because I want to engage in this story.
Yeah. Let's do some more roles on the narrative social, because we've been talking a lot about combat, which is totally fine. Let's do one or two more at least, and then see where we're at.
Morale and loyalty.
Morale and loyalty. I've had friends who have tried to crack this, and I haven't looked as closely at their work as their work deserves. I think It's not something that I've tried to tackle, mostly because not because I'm not interested in it, because I don't feel up to the task. I think the problem that you ultimately run into is how to keep morale and loyalty from just being an alternate set of hit points. Right? Like what prevents it from just being a different win condition where we're driving down a number?
Well, like, bringing my game in for a second, one of the major aspects is you actually get followers and minions, and it's not just a number that can go down. If it goes too high, they might just try to overtake you because you play as the monster. You take control of like a warband or something. They might just try to replace you if you give them too many items and stuff like that. If their
Okay.
loyalty is incorrect for it. But that is
All right,
something
so
that's specific
the
to like
game
my
becomes
kind of
much
game.
more about like balancing between two poles instead of focusing on trying to drive to one.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, I'm not like obviously I think there are good solutions for it. It's just as far as why I haven't tried to tackle the problem and what I see as like the major hurdles in trying to design that system, I think that's the pitfall that less experienced designers, I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone or like pick anyone out, but I think that's the temptation is to not see that
Ooh.
morale could very easily just be hit points by another name. So I'm glad to hear that you've found a way around that problem.
We have a good question from our first ever guest on the show, Cybrock's Opinions, or Cybrock, in the chat. And he wants to know about open-ended rules, specifically as it relates, he's calling it a fruitful void, to cover modes of play, implicit uses of a mechanic or an ability, to non-combat modes of play in like a combat-oriented game like Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm not entirely sure I followed the question entirely.
Me
Can
neither.
we restate that?
Yeah. He gives an example: Mothership's lack of hiding mechanics. So it's like there's
that's the game where you're on the spaceship with the alien, but they specifically didn't make stealth one of the things that you can roll, so that you always have to think about like how specifically you're getting away from it, and not just I roll stealth. Am I getting that correct?
I think that is what. Yes.
Okay, so with that in mind, repeat the first part of the question.
So he's saying that there's a trend of using a fruitful void to cover modes of play without needing explicit mechanics for that, and he's asking specifically, like in D&D, right? There's a lot of combat oriented combat mechanics, but you can use them in non-combat ways, right? And maybe in your game it's more like that, right?
Okay, so the question is about like how do we proactively and like intentionally design around the negative space, about leaving things out.
He's asking what you think about this design trend that is forming as a result of Dungeons and Dragons and other games. I
think that's really clever, and I think it's every idea is going to have like its moment in the sun. We're going to have points in the history of the industry where we appreciate different design elements more than others, and I think I certainly have the temptation to always be like, what can we add more? It always feels, and it's an easier selling point to say we're adding like this many new spells and this many new monsters and abilities. But I'm remembering like one of the things about Level Up that they decided is they wanted survival and exploration to be a larger part of the game. And so they worked really hard at removing a lot of the spells, or like toning down a lot of the spells, like Goodberry or Tiny Hut.
Goodberry is so overpowered. Tiny Hut ruined a campaign of mine, like a European game I ran. Completely devastated it to a large extent.
The Instant Fortress also ruined one of mine.
Yeah, it's just like these items were not made for certain types of games, even though this game is sold as a general power fantasy game, right? Like you can't.
Yeah, I mean, like once you introduce what the designers implicitly, whether or not they always realize it, suggest with the existence of those items is they're telling you what parts of the story you're not supposed to worry about, right? A big classic example here is Bag of Holding, yes. Right? Which is kind of weird because we bothered to make like encumbrance rules and everything that can give weight to all the items, and then like pretty quickly people are like, let's just get a Bag of Holding.
Yeah,
right?
or no one uses like I've almost never encountered those rules in my on and off 10 years of playing Dungeons and Dragons and running it.
Mhm.
Um,
This being
personally.
said, I think the flip side to be careful about is I remember playing. I have not actually fully played Dungeon Crawl Classics. I wanted to at Gen Con, and
Okay.
the GM unfortunately had to cancel.
Wait, which Gen Con? Which Gen Con?
2024.
Okay, because I was there.
All
I was
right.
literally there, bro. I was literally there. I played in their wizard tournament, and I got like third
That's
place,
awesome.
or out of like
Maybe,
seven. It was
maybe I walked right past you.
it was levels. They had yeah. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's
Probably.
okay. But I had heard about their I'm gonna get the names wrong, but sort of the heroic feat system where you can say that you're gonna try to do something cool that's outside the rules as a sort of a martial maneuver.
Yeah, but
right?
I think they might be called mighty feats, but they could also be heroic.
Mighty
feats.
feats. Yeah,
yes,
that might be it.
Yes. So it starts at their weird D3, and you need a 3 typically as base, and the difficulty can go up, and your dice size goes up as you level.
Yeah.
Yes.
I played around with that rule because it sounded interesting to me, and I actually did get to incorporate it into a one shot that I ran.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, as the game master, found it a little paralyzing because I
Really?
felt like I didn't have the grounding that I needed to properly evaluate like how much I was allowing.
It wasn't as structured. They may have needed more guidelines for the difficulty. Yes.
Yeah, and this is the thing that differs so much, like from game master to game master, is how much they're comfortable with that degree of flexibility.
Yeah.
One of the things that I researched, when I was doing research for Wild Magic Reimagined, I went and tried to find every Wild Magic table that someone had ever made. And one of the ones that I took a lot of inspiration from was the one by the Dungeon Coach, who's now going on to do DC20. He has a lot of great ideas in that one. One of the things I don't like about it is he doesn't have durations for any of the effects.
Yeah.
And like his thought is, it's like you can sort of gauge, and if someone really hates something, you can make it go away, or you can make it permanent.
It's too high trust for a table.
Yeah, you need a high trust table, and also like if you're not a really experienced game master, suddenly you have all this weight of needing to gauge that.
The point of a table is to make your life easier, right? So why not add the duration? You should add. I think you should add extra, and then they can strip down what they don't need.
You can always strip it down.
You should round up.
You can at the very least, yes, but yes. Like that's one of the decisions that I decided to not incorporate with Wild Magic Reimagined, is that I am adding specific durations and things, and people can always decide to tweak that. But one of the things that I think helps is I'm trying to be very transparent about how my Wild Magic system is balanced, so that if people do want to change it and they say like, actually this effect isn't for me, I'd rather get rid of it, they can say, oh, I know exactly how much that contributed and exactly what I need to do in order to slot something else back in or take even more out in order to keep it balanced.
Do you want to do one more of the narrative and social roles, or would you like to move on to a different
wherever you think we should go? If you want to stay here, I can, but if you're excited for what comes next, let's go.
Okay, Death, what do you think? Tiebreaker.
I say let's go somewhere else.
I agree.
All right.
Let's see. There's a lot to do. This is the game system, then we got the setting after. Skills and exploration.
3. Skills versus talents.
I'm gonna need some explanation as to what that topic is intending to get
in general with your characters in your game in the game system, because 5e is the basis here, and you're making like advanced with 5e. So skill versus talents, right? So like skills are things that you typically work hard to get, right? While talents are usually more an innate thing, right? Like an ability, right? So does that hash out differently in your system versus Dungeons & Dragons, or would you say there's something different there?
I'm still not sure I'm clear on the distinction.
So let's
say that you have a skill list, but then you also have like an ability that lets you automatically pass the strength check.
Yeah.
That's not a skill. That's an ability.
Yeah.
That would be a talent in this case. Like, do you have a distinction between that, or do you want to try a different topic? If it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think let's go for a different topic. I feel like
Okay.
it's just not quite latching in my brain.
Because we didn't make this table for Clark's advanced fifth edition game. Right?
No, yeah.
So yes, let's roll again.
4. How does survival and navigation work?
Wow,
Go
we're
deep
just
on this
talking
one.
about that.
We did talk about that. Yeah. And again, like I'm not doing like a full independent system. I'm building off the work of others, as so many of us are.
Yes.
But I think I can talk a little bit about how that kind of thing works in A5e, and I have already touched a little bit on it, where a lot of it is about cutting things back.
Yes. You're cutting out some, or you're there's delay, I think, on my end or yours. Death, are you here? I think it's my end. Hello?
And there are places I think that it didn't go far enough.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're all coming in through
Probably.
crystal clear.
Given that you're streaming, that's the problem.
It's catching up. I think we're good now. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, a lot of what it does is cut things back. But then also the other side of it is a lot of it is just giving people some kind of frame of reference, even if it's not super complicated, for challenging people in survival and travel situations. A big and fairly simple innovation that Level Up has is the exploration challenges, and they're just kind of things that you can sort of drag and drop. Like, here's quicksand, here is a corrupted druid grove, here is a corpse that you find in the middle of the road. And it just gives game masters, like, here's some basic challenges, here's a couple of ways that the players could potentially overcome them, and here's a range of different consequences that you could come from that. Here are the DCs that you would need in order to challenge people of a given level.
Okay, that sounds
and
amazing.
So I guess sort of the point here is that surviving in navigation doesn't have to be a full revolution in order to be supported. Like, there's simple things that you can do to make games a lot better in that area. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Wouldn't you say that there is like a hard structure? There's like hard support for something that a system has, and there may be like a soft support, and what you're describing is more of a soft support, right? Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And there, in some levels, like even that level of support, I think sometimes the way that they phrase it in the book is a little bit too hard for my taste. Where oftentimes I will see like skill challenge systems, and I feel like they're too, they take me out of the narrative too much.
It's too meta. It's too numerical.
Yeah, it's like we're doing a skill challenge. It's just like, oh, well, like now I know I need like
DC
3 rolls in order to win, as opposed to like I'm following the narrative as to where it goes.
People know numbers. Numbers is the easy part for most people. Hopefully. If you're running a game, you should know, okay, like a 20 is hard, like a 10 is pretty easy, 15 is like in between, and I can say like 13 to 17 typically. Like you feel it, right? In the game, you feel it, right? Yeah. You don't even need to know numbers well. The hard part for most people is the generation of things and just a little starting point, right? I would say. Go ahead.
I always love things that the thing that I strive for as a game master is to create challenges that like challenge the player and the character simultaneously.
Yes.
So I remember one of the systems that I came up with was I won't get too into the whole lore of how things were set up. But I put my characters my players in a situation where their characters were divided up, and they got to roll insight checks to see how the other players would be responding to a situation. And if you rolled above someone else's like charisma score, you got to know what their player was going to do. And then like I took them into the other room and sort of did a whole prisoner's dilemma game where I'm like, okay, your character, because you invest in wisdom, knows more about the situation than you would otherwise. How do you think the other players are going to react? And how can you try to gauge this prisoner's dilemma? So I'm rewarding them for investing wisdom, investing points in their character stats, while at the same time, like, I'm not just letting it be, oh, you decide to put the 20 in this column instead of the other, and so now you just get to pass.
Yeah, it's kind of like not handholdy, like it's too procedural, right?
Mm-hmm. Finding ways to make both characters challenged and players challenged in the same moment, I think, is key to a lot of Magic.
Yes, we're not.
I'm getting a little bit off topic there.
We're not at the DMV. This is not a prostate exam. This is a table of people playing rolling dice, right? Okay, let's do one more roll at least, and then we'll see how we feel.
8. Helping others.
Good question.
Once again, could you just tell me a little bit more of some of the directions you might want to take this question?
So again, this is in the context of skills and exploration.
We're talking about characters taking help actions, or are we talking about players?
Okay. How do people help others in your game, and how is that different than Dungeons and Dragons, the game that's the foundation of your game? Yes.
In Level Up, I think I would say that, like, the fundamentals there of how help actions work and such are ultimately similar. I think what differs is that emphasis on the other two pillars of the game, on the social and exploration pillars of the game, and the existence of knacks and the existence of class features that give you something meaningful. And you can have. Yes, I am.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we're good now. But I do want to say, at some point, especially at the end, but in general, if you wanted to screen share, show off the website or anything else, you're welcome to do so.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Yes. Just want to throw that out there. I say we move on from skills and exploration.
Okay.
There is more. Let's do at least one more roll on this table.
Let's go for it.
Progression, yes.
Fun.
3.
All right. One of my favorites.
Levels.
I rolled a 3.
There are too many.
Too many? How many are in...
I think there are too many levels.
How many are in level 5e?
There are 20, just like in Dungeons & Dragons. And personally, I think that the most fun happens in the first 10.
I agree with you.
I mean, that's kind of most people's opinion, that like after level 10 or like at level 9, you start getting too powerful.
I think the most fun happens in the first 5 levels, personally.
Also true.
Yes.
But, more than that, I like so the level problem in Dungeons & Dragons, like, I think has two large categories attached to it. There's the game ecology problem, which is fundamentally fixable. It's just exhausting, which is that you just need more stuff to support high level play, right? There's just fewer monsters that you can pull out of the monster manual when you get up to levels 15, 16, 17 that are meaningful. Unless you want to throw 300 million goblins
and the
someone,
HP pools and just like,
but that's also exhausting in its own way,
the number
right?
of actions,
and the monsters need to get more and more complicated.
Yes.
Ultimately, though, that's a fixable problem, and there are people who want to play in that power fantasy. The deeper problem, and one that's not a problem for everyone, but is a problem a little bit for me, is the sense that, like, you can play. The first time that I was ever a game master, like, our game wound up going from levels 5 to 7 before life happened and we had to go other ways. But we got through like a complete arc of the game, and I felt like that arc was really satisfying. But I also felt the need to have things that proceeded past that, and to be looking forward to, like, how are these stakes going to continue to escalate. And I think that the sense that you're going to be missing out on something if you don't carry your campaign all the way to level 20. And in some sense, you are missing out on something, because, like, your subclass has features in it that kick in at levels 15, 16, 17. I think that hurts the game experience.
Okay. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What if you lump together every other level, so there's 10 levels, and you just compress the abilities? I mean, I think, and you kept HP as like the original levels. So the first 10 levels of HP and stats, but the abilities. Like, I think that would be a more fun game, objectively
I
speaking.
think that would be a more fun game. I personally, the other side of this is that from a narrative perspective, sometimes I don't want the story to get to the point where we need to kill a god in order to be
Yeah,
challenged. Sometimes I just want like the big bad to be the king.
I agree. The big bads. Listen, the big bad inflation is out of control here. Okay, let's not talk about the real world inflation. Let's talk about real fantasy inflation, guys.
We're talking about the real issues on this
Just
podcast.
kill the
Someone's giving
Baron,
it
okay?
straight.
Just kill the Baron. Can we start there? Do we have to kill like, like Cthulhu? Can we start somewhere small?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that being said, like in both cases, you could have a game that scales with fewer levels to higher narrative stakes, and you can have a game that scales with fewer levels to lower narrative stakes,
Yes.
and they're going to appeal to different people. And they're both valid. I think both of those are probably better than having 20 levels. I think 20 is probably too much.
I think Blades in the Dark is one of the best examples of this ever, like possibly. I just started playing it in a campaign. Yeah. So let's want to do one more progression question, or you want to talk about progression in general in level
Again,
up?
I'll follow your lead.
Okay. Death. Oh, yes, Death. Go.
1.
What increases when and how in level up 5e as opposed to normal D&D, traditional?
Could I actually take a moment and talk about Wild Magic Reimagined specifically for this one?
Go for it.
Yes.
Yeah, because this is one of the selling points that I'm quite proud of. Is one of the things that I really had as a design goal, and that I saw other people want as I was looking at the research and the other kinds of tables that people have made, is this notion that like if I cast Meteor Swarm and it goes wild, I shouldn't get illusory butterflies, right?
No.
Big spell should make big boom.
More magic out of control is more harm. Yes.
Yes.
More downside.
And so one of the things that I've done with Wild Magic Reimagined is that I have divided up the effects into 5 tiers, and each tier roughly corresponds to about 2 levels worth of spells. So like the bottom tier is going to be like cantrips and level 1 spells, and at the top tier we've got effects that are worthy of coming after 8th and 9th level spells. And that allows you, like every 4 levels or so, introduce some new effects. That means that now kind of taking advantage of the fact that like you always feel like you're missing out on something. With Wild Magic Reimagined, you're not going to feel like you've seen all of the Wild Magic effects, unless you're very late in the game and you've played through a lot of the options. There's always going to be another surprise waiting for you, and also that's going to continue to be relevant no matter how long you're playing. And then just in case you need a little bit extra, we also have a special little system which goes above those 8th and 9th level effects called Wild Magic Calamities. Nice. And these are for the moments where like, oh, you killed the Tarrasque with an ancient sword of destiny and it shattered. That needs a little bit more. That is a universe-changing event.
I love Wild Magic, and I think everyone who plays D&D should like Wild Magic, and probably does, like a large amount. And I want to see more of that. I want to see a game that just is Wild Magic or a large amount. How much of this game you're talking about is Wild Magic?
You can add Wild Magic to anything with Wild Magic Reimagined. It is a toolkit that you can use to add it to planes, to PCs, to magic items, to monsters. We're designing it very much, and again, this is another point of like avoiding certain things more than adding it. We're designing the system so that no matter how you want to use Wild Magic, it's going to be a fit for you. And so like one of the things that we're doing that if you try to use like the original Wild Magic table in a context that's outside of what it was intended for, you run into things like, oh, you get all your sorcery points back.
Yeah.
You're a ranger, so not really sure what to do there.
Yeah.
Right? And so just...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So just sort of having like the restrictions and discipline to find creative ways that don't make assumptions about what kind of creature or event is triggering the wild magic within reason, to some extent. Like, we do generally assume that there is a character involved somewhere wild magic that just happens in a vacuum is not super interesting.
Yeah.
But by trying to make as few assumptions as possible about the nature of wild magic, we can really open the doors to what it can do
So are you working
and
on both?
how universally it can be used.
Are you working on both these projects simultaneously?
So, like, Level Up Advanced 5th Edition is a complete game. That's been out.
It's been out. Okay.
Yes, that is a whole system that was released about 4 years ago.
And this whole time we've been talking about that, and you're mentioning this. No problem. We have a plug at the end. If you want to plug something like in between right now.
Yeah, so I do. Just to set the record straight, Level Up Advanced 5th Edition is the system that like I have sort of cut my teeth in as a game designer, and where I've met a lot of the other people who have taught me to be a designer and challenged me and pushed me to grow, and that I've gotten to challenge in return.
Yes.
And it's given me like my first publishing experiences. In designing Wild Magic Reimagined, it is compatible with Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, as well as being compatible with your standard 5th Edition game, either whether 2014 version or 2024 version, as well as Tales of the Valiant.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Let's move on from progression, unless you want to do one more depth. We should probably.
No, it's fine.
Okay, let's do one. Okay. You know what? So before we get into settings, unless you wanted to talk more about the game system, the setting is probably more. Yes. So before Death, you want to do one more for system, or should we move on to setting?
I'm good with anything.
Okay. So let's do one more roll on the system, and if it's a duplicate, we'll move on.
This is a duplicate 6 progression.
Okay, let's move on. And also, we're going to do death time, which means I'm leaving for 5-10 minutes, and you're going to talk to Death.
All right.
Oh,
and
boy.
You can have an actual conversation without me interrupting.
Stuck with me.
Yes. So enjoy, and I'll be back.
All right.
So, biggest question. Why did you want to go this deep into wild magic?
Pride, basically. And I mean that in the better sense and not in the egotistical sense. The first thing that spurred it for me was I've been working on this, expanding this game for a while, and my friends have been doing it, and like we all talk to each other, so we basically know the niches that we've been filling. And I was continuing to look around, it's like where else does this game need some love? One of the things that Level Up Advanced 5th Edition doesn't have is a strong wild magic system. It's got a couple of places. It's got a Wand of Wonder. It's got like a smaller little wild magic event, but not like a proper like D100 table that you'd see in Tales of the Valiant or in 5th Edition. And I was like, this is embarrassing for us. Like we need a wild magic system worthy of Advanced 5th Edition and like the love that I and my community have for this game. So I started digging into it. And started to do the research and look at like, okay, what would the best wild magic system in the world include? Like, what are all the improvements that we could make? How could we make this really worthy of the name? And
does it ever go deck of many things level of stuff, or do you maintain that there is no death card in a sense? Do you know what that means?
Insofar as that, like, the deck of many things like is very much a like you could just have a bad roll and be done.
Yeah.
That is something where I have actively tried to like again sort of give choice in the matter and put people in I don't think it's more fun to have choices taken away from you. And so I've generally tried to not totally remove things that would be extremely dangerous, but to give players and GMs sort of ways out of it. So let's take a classic, right? One of the wild magic cliches is rolling fireball centered on yourself and you TPK the party. I still have a fireball, like you cast fireball effect in Wild Magic Reimagined, but they've got a couple safeguards built in. It doesn't automatically cast centered on you. There's 3 variants, depending on whether or not you get the good, bad, or neutral version. We call them in the game the wheel, the balance, or the woe variant of the effect. So if you get the one that benefits you, the wheel version, you get to choose where fireball is cast. If you get the woe version, the GM gets to choose where it's cast, and they might choose to cast it on you, but they also might decide that that would be less interesting for their story, and they'd rather cast it on the nearby politician or on the supports for the tavern that you're in, right? And make the game more interesting that way rather than just ending the story. And then there's also the compromise version, the balanced version, is that the location that the fireball goes off is determined either by chance or by compromise. So the simplest way to do it is that you and the GM should just have a quick conversation and be like, okay, you're okay with putting it here? Like, great, let's go. Or if, it might be the case of like, okay, here's 3 places that I think would be okay. You pick which one. And so we still get the danger of, you could definitely have a fireball cast on the party, but there's some safeguards built in so that it doesn't just remove choice and end play prematurely.
All right, fun's over. Back to the setting.
Ah, shucks.
All right, so that's done. Death, you had your time. Send me.
And now I shall sink back into the darkness.
Yeah, send me your pages. Okay, let's do a setting roll. Setting the table.
Yep. Technology and magic.
Ooh, good one.
Technology and magic. Ah.
Roll. So you can talk in general and or we can roll.
I'm just thinking about this. This is revelatory of the kind of GM that I am.
No, but you can talk. You can even talk overall. Like you can even like extrapolate the rules to what that might imply about a setting. Whatever you want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's 2 vague instincts with the with harder soft magic systems, and obviously like D&D has a harder magic system in that there are rules in play. Yeah. But there's a second question, which is whether or not as a game master or as a setting designer you want the world to reflect a harder or softer reality.
It's kind of a meta question.
Yes. And a place like Eberron or the work of Brandon Sanderson says like, yeah, these mystical things exist and they have rules that we can understand and identify, and like let's trace out the consequences of those. And that's definitely my temptation as a designer and as a game master. Like I remember getting paralysis when I was like first learning to GM, because I was like thinking, I was gonna put my players like on a mission to sail up a river chasing our mysterious bad guy, and I thought to myself, it's like I haven't mapped out the continents to know where the air pressure would flow and what the direction the prevailing winds would be. And so if I don't get this right, and if the wind's blowing the wrong way, the suspension disbelief is over.
Bro, okay, did you start with the module? Because I started with like, I opened up the GMG, I'm like, let's get a table. All right, great. You know what happened? This place hates religion, and there's, they're weird. Like, and here's a little wolf town.
No, I was the sort that felt like I needed to like make everything absolutely my own, and like spend time like trying to research. Like we're up in the Arctic. I need to go and research like the Sami and Yakutsk and Inuit peoples in order to understand like what would be. You're
the tryhard GM. You're like a simulationist tryhard GM, basically.
Yes.
Now I'm a simulationist,
and that's something I've gotten better at that.
Yeah.
And realizing that it's not actually a valuable use of my time or my dwindling mental health.
Wait. Is that because of the game designing, the toll that takes, or is that other stuff? Sorry. Off topic.
No, actually, my mental health is pretty good, I would say.
It's a joke.
Yes, it was a joke. I've got a really wonderful community. I have so much support and love. And I can just compare myself to where I was, like 10 years ago. It's like, oh, yeah, I had no idea how bad things were then.
Yeah, it's all perspective. It's all relative, right?
It is.
Yes. Let's do a roll, like for once.
Okay.
Thank you for rolling death. My hands, my hands are just too tired to roll. So I really appreciate it.
Access.
So
like, how common would WoW magic be then? Is it like an every encounter situation, or like, is this like you rolled good or bad? Here's the results.
Access to wild magic in Wild
Yeah.
Magic Reimagined.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, it's a toolkit. And so like one of the things that I really want is that you can add wild magic to anything. You can also control how frequently it shows up. And like, I mean, one of the real annoying things in the original wild magic subclass is that you roll wild magic and like get it on one roll. Like if you roll a 1 on a d20, so you get it 5% of the time, maybe if the GM remembers to ask you for it.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's the reason we're playing this is for this table. Let's be real. No one plays wild magic sorcerers and says like, I really want that Ties of Chaos feature, but I'm not super interested in whatever that table is doing.
They're there for the table. The table is the sexy part.
It is.
It's the fun part.
And so like one of the things that I want with and that I'm doing with Wild Magic Reimagined is I am literally calculating like, okay, if I say that wild magic happens if you roll a 5 or higher on a d12, or a 18 or higher on a d20 or a d100, how many rolls do we expect that to take?
Okay.
Before you get wild magic.
I would like to ask 2 more specific questions to get a better idea of what's going on. So, one, in your book, in your setting, your game, your version of your game, right? Of your tools, what is the percentage of people who can do wild magic, possibly, and or semi-consistently? First question.
Up to you.
No, your answer.
Oh, I have not actually. I've been so focused on like making the system for it. Yeah. It's not something I've really gone and like built out a.
But it's
world
less than 1%.
I've got
right? Of the people.
I mean, like it's almost not a relevant question. It's whenever it's appropriate for the. Yeah, I don't think this is quite the direction. We're going on a different direction than I think that we were hoping to go with technology and magic and how that applies to a setting.
You can just talk about it, but we're talking about access, right? So there's like what proportion of people can use it, and then there's okay, let's say someone can use it in your game, in your book, in your imagination. How often does that trigger, would you say? Like you said, narratively speaking.
I like about 1 in 3 or 4 times. I think.
Okay.
I'll leave some playtesting to confirm that. But that's sort of like, if I'm going to give you a default for how often that should happen, I would say 1 in 3 or 4 times. That being said, it depends on what your trigger is. If it's something like you're casting a spell and that triggers wild magic, that's where I go for like 1 in 3 or 4 as my benchmark. But I think there are, like, one of the things I also leave some flexibility on is what's your trigger. It doesn't have to be casting a spell or a cantrip. It can be you spoke the true name of an archfey.
Whenever I touch a
and wild magic happens every time you do that.
Whenever I touch a blueberry.
Oh boy.
Right?
Yes.
And like what kind of craziness does that imply about this character that like speaking their name rends reality?
I like that a lot. Okay, let's do at least one more roll. Text and magic. Yeah. I feel like we're getting to the heart of the right topics, but like, yeah, but it's okay.
Yeah, I have to navigate through.
It's okay. This is our first time talking. We did not call before this. 2, tech and magic disasters.
Magical disasters. Okay, this seems like a good time that I would love to screen share and show my my pre-sale page for the book.
Okay.
For reasons that should become clear momentarily. Let me share my screen here. Hang on, I'm gonna actually pull up the thing so I'm not typing in the URL later. Okay. All right.
Oh wow.
Can we see that?
Let's find out.
I'm gonna go down to focus in on
we can see it.
the beautiful, beautiful art piece that the fantastic Camilla Brunn commissioned made for me.
Elysium level.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, so for the people who are only listening to this, would one of you like to describe what you're seeing?
Death? No. There's okay, I'll briefly try. We got some dudes, and there's a little pond and like a plains. There's a little sun. It's like a sunset, and the sky is shattering as though it was made out of glass, and the illusion is fading, and there's the cosmic background behind it, and the sky is falling.
Yeah.
Is that a reasonable description?
I think that's pretty reasonable. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier with, like, trying to, if you kill the Tarask with the ancient sword of destiny and it breaks, like, how does that change your world? And so this is a thing that I really wanted to support, and I want there to be these moments where it's like, you know what, we need something above and beyond the normal course of stuff. Yes. So the plan is to have the plan is to have exactly 35 different wild magic calamities that you can choose between or randomly decide on that will transform the scope of your world.
Can you name a couple?
Yeah, so there's stuff like, obviously, the sky shatters, right? A huge one. A new god is born is another classic one. Every animal awakens, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so things like this, things that have like fundamentally transformative changes to your world. They're the kinds of things that you might pull on once a campaign, or ideally, you might say that like you might draw it before a campaign and say, like, this happened 100 years ago. We're going to start our campaign 100 years into this calamity.
Or maybe trying to stop it, right?
Yeah, or trying to stop it. That's another great one.
Yes.
And I also want to, one of the things I haven't really gotten to touch on with Wild Magic Reimagined is that we've got, all of the effects are categorized into 5 major themes.
Okay. Now I'm interested.
Yeah, which I have detailed right here.
Whoa.
So we've got. Can you still see the?
You've minimized. Okay, yes, I can see.
There it goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Corruption.
Yeah, so we've got corruption, growth, intellect, passion, and virtue.
That's genius.
And so the notion here is that, if you are a dark evil warlock, why does your wild magic summon a unicorn, right? Like, if you're a dark evil warlock, your wild magic should summon like dark evil tentacles, unless you're trying to be funny, in which case it should intentionally summon a unicorn.
Yes.
That's passion. So we've got a couple of these different themes that we can use to draw on different sources of wild magic. If you're playing a druid, like, you're going to want to go for that growth theme. If you're playing a cleric, virtue is probably going to be the direction that you're going to go. But these themes also apply to our wild magic calamities, so you can have different kinds of disasters based on what kind of trigger they have, right? And also you can mix and match some of these themes. So if you kill a god and you want to trigger a wild magic calamity from that, then maybe you want to say, it's like, okay, maybe we want to draw on some of the divine elements from virtue, but maybe we also want to focus in on like corruption. So maybe we want to be looking at the effects that exist sort of in the space in between those two.
Yeah, dude, I love these 5, and I honestly wish I looked into your game more before we had you on.
Well, now you could look into it a lot more because it's on pre-sale right now. And if you sign up and put down a $1 deposit, you get access to the VIP Discord. We're going to have early access playtest, so you can really dig into it, and you will get a free little wheel or woe coin, a little foot coin, included with any physical pledge for Wild Magic Reimagined.
Okay, yes, that's staying in the video, but also save that. Hold it.
Okay. We'll come back to it.
That'll be it then. Promise. Amazing. Anything else you want to show on the website? Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have them on physical cards.
Dude,
okay,
every
really
effect
cool.
is going to be a physical card, so that you don't have to spend your time indexing tables.
It has been a little while, and there was more to cover, so I do want to move on, if possible.
Yep.
No, I want to talk to you for 8 hours, but we can't. Okay.
I think we can move past setting because, like, his his thing
Yeah.
is setting it up.
Okay.
as
Now I
well.
want to. Are you good to talk business marketing? Because that's kind of my main thing on the show.
Go.
Okay. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Go to the go to the what's your plan? Okay. Excuse me. All right. What's your plan, man?
What's the plan for Wild Magic Reimagined?
Yeah, with the
Yep.
the project. Yeah, your plan.
Yeah. So I'll tell a little story here. Back at the aforementioned 2024 Gen Con, I was in line the first day to get tickets. And I happened to be in line next to a girl named Leonie. And we get to talking, and I mentioned that it's like, I'm here sort of to do research for crowdfunding. I really think of this this product has potential. And she's like, oh, I just ran a super successful Kickstarter. You need to work with a company called LaunchBoom. LaunchBoom are really just masters of the crowdfunding space. They are behind projects like Crooked Moon and Surviving Strange Hollow. They helped with that in sort of the non-TTRPG, non-tabletop role-playing game space. They also were behind like board games like Botany, or Bear Mountain Camping Adventure, like really huge successes on Kickstarter. And they basically what they've been doing, they've been absolutely fantastic, is they walk you through the best way to build an email list and collect your VIPs and build your community such that on the first day that you launch your Kickstarter, you can have a bunch of pledges come in and meet your goals super early and then get that momentum rolling.
So you did work with them on your stuff.
I'm currently working with them.
Okay,
yes.
And you've enjoyed working with them? Yes. They've been amazing.
Yes.
Sounds like great.
They've been fantastic.
Now,
thoroughly recommend.
Now I'm gonna ask you the hard questions, and I am not gonna push. I'm gonna push pretty hard. Death.
Great.
Roll me a d6. No. I'm rolling. I'm rolling from now on. I'm rolling from now on. All right. 1.
With that, I will disappear for like 5 minutes.
Okay. Why will your plan succeed? What makes you believe in your plan?
My plan is going to succeed because unlike a lot of tabletop role-playing games, I have a very specific understanding of what question and pain point and need I am trying to fulfill. I am going into this not with a hope, but with a strategy. I'm aware of the fact that I am not an industry expert, and so I'm seeking out and actively consulting with, and where necessary, hiring industry experts in order to give me the best chance and the best understanding in order to how to move forward. And also on top of that, yep.
That was the right answer. That was the answer right there.
Yes.
Throw some mustard on it. Keep going.
Yeah, and also I'm not coming into this from nothing. I have been working on a small scale for a couple of years now, like honing my craft and making sure that by the time that I'm ready, and I do feel that I'm ready to go on to this larger scale and this larger stage, the product that I'm going to be delivering is worth it. And I've cut my teeth as a designer.
Okay.
I've reached the point where I am comfortable and competent that I can put something out to the world and look back on it and be proud of it.
Amazing. Now, what would you tell all the shy, not confident, anxious, all the people who are grinding it away right now and don't think they're ready or want to do this and are not doing it? What would you tell them?
Do it scared. That is what I was told.
Do it scared? I love that.
Do it scared. You're scared. Yeah, being scared isn't an excuse, and it's not going to stop you.
Yes.
It's neither an excuse nor a real obstacle. It just means that you're going to go in and you're going to be scared. And I'm still scared, right? Like there's big investment. There's also like I've just invested a lot of my passion and hopes and time into this project. And at the end of the day, like I've got reasonable confidence, but I don't know that this will succeed. Like something can happen tomorrow, as it's nearly happened like several times over the course of the project. That brings the whole thing crashing down. But
you will succeed.
Can I say one last bit there?
Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I also knew that I was never going to be at peace with myself so long as I was asking, could I have done it if I tried?
Yes. Anyone listening, would you rather do the thing and mess up and learn a bunch and grow? Would you rather live with regret and live with the hesitation, knowing that you could have been a something or done something, and you chose not to? Also, like, use your excitement to push past the fear, and then just like do the thing. Like, it's not easy, but it's very simple, right?
Mhm.
In my opinion, there's no obstacles. There's no obstacles. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. This is a very touchy subject for me. For me.
I'm glad you're asking.
Yes.
Important questions.
Let's do another roll then. Business strategy. I rolled 1 again, so we'll do. So we're not going to repeat the question, but 4. What is your publishing and distribution plan?
Publishing and distribution. I have been questioning whether or not this is a product that I want to try to push into a like brick and mortar retail space and sell to third parties to pass on to consumers. Not because like I don't believe that the margins are there. I think they are. It's just that I'm also looking at the kinds of products that other that my friendly local board game store sells, and outside of like system specific books that are like launching a whole new system, it's hard to get into that space if your name isn't Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think that there's like, if this is ludicrously radically successful and I've got like 7 or more digits on my Kickstarter funding, I think there might be an avenue there to say like, hey, like I've demonstrated the demand. You might want a couple copies of this on your shelf. Just hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Of course.
But so direct to consumer is my main strategy here.
Understood.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to ask. Well, I do want to say that there. I think it'd be pretty easy to get on a some sort of distribution, like some people that distribute and they can handle the details for you. Eventually, I don't think that.
Yeah.
I think it's worth checking out.
A name that I've been reaching out to, and I haven't gotten to talk to them yet, but I've sent them an email.
Okay.
Is Golden Goose Games. They do a lot of the work for distribution and sales of mostly for board games. So I'm interested to see if they've got an idea for how to handle tabletop role playing games. The Duxomnium, the people who made Botany and LaFleur and Artistry, have worked with Golden Goose Games from the beginning, and so I'm if they keep coming back to them, there's a good reason because they don't mess around. So I at least need to know what they're up to.
I need to do some research after this episode. Also, we'll do 1 or 2 more rolls, but anything you want to ask me, because I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know business a little bit, and yeah.
Well, before I ask you this, where do you feel like your particular strengths in business are? That will narrow down what my next question is.
Well, so this segment is business strategy. The next one is marketing strategy. Spoilers. Those are my 2 main strengths. I would say communication, like a direct communication of a message, finding the right people, getting those people to be in with you. Yes.
I think so.
I want to build the smallest product possible with the most value.
Yeah. Here's maybe a question. Is that I've been doing a lot of work on this project. Yes. There's a lot of work still to go. In my ideal world, I would fund really well on Kickstarter, and then I would use that as partial incentive to like help assemble a team of people who, like, now that they see that the project like has already been successful, are willing to commit to helping me deliver it a little faster, a little better. And so I'd like to ask, it's like, I know that I need artists. I know that I probably need like a handful of other designers to help me crank out some of these additional points. Who are people that you would recommend that I get on my team that I might not think about?
Oh my God, dude. You're asking the question right now. The question. Delegation, team building, leadership, yes? So, the people, okay? So do you want to give me a list of who you've got on dial? Or do you want me to just list some stuff?
You go.
Great. I have a bunch of random people. I have couple video editors. I got a writer. I got friends. I have like actual like a teacher who's helping with like the editing of the words, layout. Uh,
Yep.
everyone has opinions. Everyone's game designer. Um, so I got some math. I got like a bunch of programmer friends because I'll be doing like a website version of the game and like an
Mhm.
app integration. Um, I'm just spreading a wide net for all my potential needs. Um, hmm. Uh, I would a publisher, someone who actually knows stuff about books, and then also someone who knows like the general laws, and then also just like the business setup, right? So like I made an LLC, sole proprietorship, right? So
Yep.
those things, right? So there's a lot of there's like I see that there's like the business side, and there's like the creative side, right?
Hmm.
And there's other things, but like community building, I would say that's more on the creative side, right? Search engine optimization, it's kind of a mix, right? So there's all these little things, right? So I think you need some generalists in your corner that will help you at least somewhat enough to get the foundation, right? The start.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
Honestly, like I think pretty much everybody in this business got into it for the creative side. But I've
Yes.
because I now have that link to like the creative part that I'm really passionate about, I've been having a surprising amount of fun like handling the bits that I did not think would be interesting before.
Right.
Like talking to distribution centers and manufacturers and being like, what are the like what is the weight of this product going to be and how will that affect
Yes.
shipping? And
So, so here's what I recommend to you and to everybody, that I always say, is you are filling the gaps that because you're the guy, right? Other
mhm,
people, you're getting if there's a big enough gap, you get someone to help you, right? And also, if it's not worth your time, get someone to do it. All right?
yep.
Frankly, I'm not going to be my own accountant. I'm not going to be my own social media person. Not forever. I need a personal assistant. I'm not organized, right? What are your strengths?
So yeah,
What are your weaknesses?
the first three people that I would like, assuming that this campaign does well enough, are an accountant, a lawyer, and a financial advisor.
Wow.
Because I do not want to be one of the first. I do not want to be one of the 75% of small businesses that goes out in their like first 3 to 5 years. If this
Wow.
goes well, and I think it will,
You,
I I want to make sure that I'm a proper custodian of my resources.
so it sounds like you are focusing on the creative side and you want to focus there and you'll figure out all the creative stuff for the most part. Maybe you have people on commission. I have like a bunch of people slowly on commission. Um, but it does sound like you're focusing on the creative side.
I mean, like
Or you
I
want to.
definitely reached the point. I started with like more collaboration on the creative side, and um, I I reached the point that I was like, this initial stage of the project, I need to do myself because I've got the vision, and without starting to execute on it, it's
Yes.
difficult for me to communicate like how it all works together. I've gotten a good ways into it now, and I think it's at the point where I could bring some other designers, people I know and trust, in onto the team
Yeah.
if they're willing and have the time,
Hmm.
and that they would be able to see what that structure is and like respond really well to it now.
Of course.
But I honestly like the in terms of just like recent time, like
Yeah.
my focus recently has been more on the business side of it,
Same
insofar as
here.
that
Same here.
it's just where I am in the process right now.
So
You
let
know,
me
I'm starting to run paid ads, and I'm trying to
good.
figure out like how do I optimize those. And
So let me ask you a question. I think it's better if you get one business guy to help you out, but also go bother your bankers. Go to the bank you're at. I've been going 2 3 days a week, and I'm like, hey, how do I do this thing? And they're giving me all these tips. They give me like fee waiver, discount here, and it's like great. Talk to your bank, dude. Your bank knows money. Banks are all about money and business. Banks have connections, dude.
my day job is at a broker dealer, so I've
I didn't
got
know
some
that.
advantages
I did
there.
not know that. So now I
Yeah,
know.
so I work in tech support for a broker dealer.
Now we know. Let's do another roll unless you have another question. I hope I answered your question. It was very open ended, but I did my best. I'm
Pretty good.
24
I
years
mean,
old,
like
by the way.
no, yeah. I mean, like one of the things that I have been struggling with a little bit is, I've got a main manufacturer that I'd like to work with. I could change my mind on that, but like there's a couple specialty like add-ons and components
Yeah.
that I see in so many other Kickstarters um, and other projects that I'm struggling to find the right company or person to reach out to.
Okay.
Yeah, like the big one that's been driving me crazy so far has been like Sharp Edge, like luxury dice. Like there's a bunch of companies that do it, but like trying to reach out to them, and I'm like, oh, you do custom dice, but actually you don't customize metal dice. Okay, I'm reaching out to you, but you've never gotten back to my emails. So just trying to figure out like how I can imitate those networks of collaborators is
Yes.
a trick.
So here's what I want to tell you. Generally speaking, this is my belief. There are really just two things going on in existence. There's people, and there's things, right? And you have a lot of things, and you have some people, right? Sounds like you want these things from these people, right? So you need to push. I like pushing through the people route, because when I have more things, it'll be easier. But right now, I think you gotta know the right people, right? And you gotta push on those connections. You definitely know someone who works there, and you can definitely get someone on the phone. Like, there's no hesitation. So if you don't want to go like deal with people, then you need to send some emails. You need to do something with things like, send them $50. I mean, don't just send them $50, but do something with the things you have, the resources, to get the people's attention, right?
Makes no sense.
I'm being super broad, and I don't know if that's helpful, but you need information. That's what you're lacking. You're lacking clarity and information from these people. There has to be a Reddit post of some dude who's obsessed with sharp dice who analyzed every single company. I promise you.
Yeah.
It's out there.
Yes.
Find that. Let's do another roll. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling. My bad. Let's see. 2. What are the obstacles that you must overcome? What can you do to overcome them?
Oh gosh. I mean, like, in some sense, everything is an obstacle. That doesn't mean that everything is a significant obstacle.
Yes.
Like, so much of it is just time. I'm a parent. I've got a full-time job. I have to sleep in there somewhere.
That's true.
And I do prioritize sleep. That's not something that I shirk off. But there's just so much to do. And right now, as I've mentioned, like I don't have a huge team. I've been the significant driver. I'm lucky to have a wife who is extremely supportive, but she has a full-time job.
Yes.
And so she helps where she can. She's a great person to bounce ideas off of and everything. But I think the biggest obstacle is just the sheer quantity of tiny little tasks. And then, of course, just not knowing all of those tiny little tasks.
Oh my god.
And you're like, you're going through, you think everything's fine, and then you're like, wait, what's VATs? Now I need to learn all about that.
So this is one page of a to-do list, okay? This is another page, okay? And that is maybe half of what I need to do, at most, currently.
Yeah. So
I think we're on the same page. I'm probably doing like 5 projects or more, not like games, but like projects. And it's too much. And delegation, you need to delegate. You need to leverage yourself. Let's say the average person is 1. You're operating at least a 3 or 5, at least a 2. And if you get 1 or 2 other people who actually can work and are better at the things than you are, then you can leverage to 50 or 25 or 100 or 1,000, right?
I like the sound of that.
Look, it's just math, right? Don't waste your time and energy on stuff that you don't have to do and you can afford not to, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I keep repeating myself, but I think we're on the same page. Do you want to do another business strategy? Or you want to move on to the marketing segment?
We can do more and more business strategy.
Okay, let's do it. Let's roll. Oh, we rolled a duplicate, so we'll do one more roll, and if it's another duplicate, then we're done. So, unless you want, we can open up to anything within this.
No, we've committed. Go.
3. What are your competitors doing? How will you compete?
This, in some sense, I almost feel like it's a trick question in the tabletop role-playing game space.
A little bit.
Because, like, I feel like, what's the best way to get someone to buy a tabletop role-playing game product is to have them have already bought something else, right? And the more specific trick is that, like, there is some point at which, like, I am competing with other like wild magic systems, for example.
Yes.
And so there I'd say like no one's done wild magic to the extent or with the degree of professional polish that I'm doing it now. It just hasn't been done. There have been, I think probably the closest is the Dungeon Coach's wild magic system.
Yes.
But that was kind of like, he threw it up as a PDF, and it's a side consideration for him.
It's an afterthought.
He loves wild magic. He's proud of what he did, but it was not the focus of his project. This is the first and only time, to my knowledge, that anyone's ever taken on this problem with the degree of seriousness that I have.
And that is what sells. That's what makes a good product, my guy. You connect directly to your consumers, your customers, your audience. Amazing. Is there any... Death, you want to ask a business strategy question? No? You're just dying. So, okay. You want to talk more? I think we can move on, unless there's something else you want to say. Let's move on. Marketing strategy. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's see. 1. Who is your target demographic?
This is an interesting question that I am actively finding out the answers to right now. Because I'm in the middle of testing ads. And so, the Launch Boom, the agency that I'm working with, has a series of like different large genres of ads of like audiences that you can target on Meta that they've collected over the years. And so, I started like, okay, well, great. We're definitely grabbing the tabletop role-playing game one.
Yes.
And then that's actually where I started to run into an issue, because if I was doing something like more themed, like Crooked Moon, I would be like, and we're also going for folk horror. Or if I was going with Strange Hollow, I could maybe go with like, let's find something like Alice in Wonderland and kind of weird. But like, because mine is as niche as it is and as open as it is, I had to go a little bit broader. So I was like, okay, let's grab like board games in general, because that's kind of an adjacent interest. And let's grab, they've got like high fantasy and dark fantasy. What surprised me in there is that like dark fantasy has been doing really well, and high fantasy did so poorly, I'm just abandoning that audience.
Really? Okay, wow. This is very interesting.
I have a hunch as to why.
Let's hear it.
A lot of the specific products that are like targeted in the high fantasy audience are Lord of the Rings. I think Lord of the Rings might be too popular, and I think that there are way, way more people who like Lord of the Rings that don't also specifically like tabletop role-playing games. So there's also a part of me that's just like, I think there are super fans in that subset. So like Brandon Sanderson's novels were also categorized in there. And of course, I don't know, do you think that Sanderson fans might be interested in role-playing games based on any major Kickstarters?
That's an amazing question.
Recently?
You know about Cosmere, right? They raised like, was it 5 million?
Oh yeah, I was being very facetious there.
Okay, good.
So I'm like,
okay, sorry, go ahead.
So yes, I'm like, I still want to do a much more like targeted, like custom audience.
Yes.
But right now I'm testing some of the general categories.
You're testing the waters.
Yes, I'm testing the waters, seeing what sticks, what doesn't.
You mentioned Brandon Sanderson, so I do want to do a quick note there. Most people buying that stuff are the people who care about the novels more than the RPG, and they're like, I want a setting book. They're not like, I want to play this game.
Right?
Most of them.
Like, it's an art book, it's a setting book, and then, a number of people will maybe play the game. That being said, like, I got to test that game at Gen Con. It's really solid,
Good to know.
And it's sort of, if you've ever played the Civilization games, they've got a policy at Firaxis where, like, 1/3 of any new thing that they put out needs to be the same as the original. Then 1/3 needs to be tweaked, and 1/3 needs to be brand new. I think the Cosmere RPG follows that sort of model with Dungeons and Dragons, where it's like, this is definitely similar enough that I don't feel like I'm jumping into something radically different.
Yeah.
But there's enough difference that it does feel like a new experience, and it's not just a ripoff. Like, they have intentionally thought about what's going to make our game different and what's going to make our game appropriate for our setting.
Amazing. I'm saying amazing a lot, not because I'm Jesse Lee Peterson.
This is validating for me, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm not crazy. Like I do have thoughts that are...
You're not crazy. And if you're crazy, then I'm crazy, at least as crazy as you.
Perfect.
And
Good in good company.
and we will be the non-crazies soon. Successful people that are crazy are called eccentric. And we're eccentric. We will be soon. So, marketing strategy. Again, let's do another roll, and then we'll go from there. Unless you want to ask something. Marketing, I think. Marketing is communication, color theory, psychology. It's a lot of things. Pop culture. 6. What is your message to others?
My message to others, as in other creators.
With your game, to just okay. You can give a message.
Or what is my message? Like, what is the game's message to
answer
consumers?
Both. Answer both.
The game's message to consumers is that there's a whole world of stories that become possible when you have this ability to like constructively harvest chaos that is just not possible to do, or at the very least not possible to do well with the rules that we've been given so far. I could go into some of the specific ideas, but there's character concepts, there are monsters, there are magic items that like there's not an effective way to tell those kinds of stories without this system. And so that's really the selling point of the system, is that like this is not just another little add-on that you throw into your game because it's cute. This is something that like if you're serious about like having the full set of tools available at your disposal, you need this.
This is this is not a tool, this is a tool belt. This is the arsenal.
Yeah, you could say that. It's a pretty like niche tool belt. You know, it's not going to be for absolutely everyone, but if you're serious about like really having the tools at your disposal to tell the best and most creative and original stories, this is going to be an indispensable product for you.
Death, are you okay? You look like you're dying.
I mean, I am.
Okay, well, please don't.
That's what I've been saying the entire freaking episode.
Slower. Please die slower. Okay.
Nope.
So, back to the tables. Death, your screen's minimized. We can't see the tables. Okay, thank you. Should we, and the dice on the floor. Okay, that's a good sign, right? Everything's going according to plan. All right, that's another 6. So let's do 1 or 2 more.
Okay.
3. How much do you plan to budget? And you can give a number or a percentage for marketing purposes. For marketing purposes and outreach.
That's such a weird question right now because like I'm in the stage where I'm testing the viability of the product. We're seeing we put in all the work to get in the art assets, and to get things initially set up, and we're now finally running ads, and we're getting some pretty good responses right now. Rough figures, we're hovering a little bit over like $2 per person who signs up and gives me their email. And our benchmark for success is 4. So this is a good place to be. I'm hoping to continue to improve it.
Sounds great.
Yeah. But insofar as that, like, I think I would say that, like, to get up to this point, I've probably spent around, let's call it like 8,000 or 9,000 between like the getting involved with the ad agency, commissioning art, running this initial set of ads.
Sure.
And if we're looking at a good return on investment, like if we're seeing 3 or 4 times return on investment, then like let's go.
Let's go.
Let's pump in as much as we can.
Yes. Okay. Let's change the question slightly. What % of your time and energy is going to marketing and outreach?
Right now, most of it. It's just insofar as that's the stage of the project that I'm in.
Okay. What about like over the course of the entire project on average?
Over the course of the entire project?
Yes.
Yeesh. I feel like any answer that I give is going to be
It's at least
laughably
10%.
inaccurate
It's
in
at least
retrospect when I
10%.
see how much.
You expect it to be 10% at least, right? Hopefully.
I'd say at least 10%.
Okay.
Yeah, it's feeling like 10% is probably at the low end right now.
Is it 20?
But right now it might be. Insofar as that, like, there's probably way more work to do on the actual project than even I, who've been thinking about it for over a year, have been trying to anticipate. There's so much to do.
There is. At least you're self-aware about that you have these two things that you're balancing, these two big things, these juggernauts, right? The product and the creative side, and getting this product to people's hands and their eyes and their wallet. And
yeah,
their
but
wallet,
like,
right?
it is definitely one of the things, it's like I've been working on a small scale. I've been publishing for like a small community, and like within that community, I'm like a fairly well-known name. I've contributed to other projects. I've published for the little monthly magazine that Ian Publishing puts out. But like, success is somewhat limited just because like people don't know outside of that community
Yes.
who I am.
Yes.
And I need to fix that.
It's a big thing to do. That's a big problem.
And on top of that, like, what I'd really love to see is I'd love to see this project do well enough that my other friends who are doing really fantastic work in the design community, but who have also been playing at a small scale, see that like, oh, I could also make it big.
It's a signal. It's a beacon. It's a role model. You're setting a path for others to tread if they would like. Yes.
Yeah, and also just finding out like some of the weird things that like you wouldn't anticipate. One of the things that I didn't realize I would need was a post office box.
Yes.
Because I need to have an address at the bottom of the mass emails that I send out, and I don't want it to be my house.
That's reasonable. I put my grandma's house on the LLC filing because I don't have a PO box. But maybe I'll change it. We'll see. Don't come to my house, or we'll have problems.
Don't come to my house.
I will be.
Unless you have cake.
I'll fight you, or I'll eat with you, or we'll talk. Okay, don't do that. Marketing strategy. Let's do another roll. Another 3. Okay, so let's do one more roll, and if we don't get something, then we just talk in general.
Then move on.
Yeah, and then we'll move on because the final is just conclusion and then plugs and then.
Great.
Oh, we got another 3. I kind of want to do another roll.
Okay.
Unless you want to just talk about something.
You can go.
Okay. 6. Fucking A. Okay, so, Clark. What's your last name again?
Peterson.
Clark Peterson. How do you feel overall about what we've talked about? The show, us, yourself. Give us a conclusion wrap up. Or Death can go, or I can go. We'll all go.
Yeah, I mean, feel pretty good. I have the weird experience of feeling more comfortable as we got into sort of the business questions rather than the tabletop questions.
Right.
Just because like I've been so immersed in like the business side lately, and as mentioned with toddlers and pregnancies and stuff, it's been harder to actually get my teeth into playing the game, and so like in some sense I've been a little bit of a fish out of water, which is not where you want to be as a game designer.
Of course.
But still obviously like immersed in that community and immersed in this project. But it at the same time like weirdly comforting to feel it's like, oh yeah, like as I'm talking about the business side, the bit that a lot of people find scary, for lack of a better word, like I feel comfortable and I have strong answers to the questions that are asked.
You do. I'm impressed, Clark.
Thanks.
Death, do you want to take it from here, or do you want me to? No, we're not done. Just in conclusion.
Keep going.
Okay, so
I haven't hit anything.
Clark, amazing idea, amazing product. You're awesome. You're almost perfect.
Thanks.
Based on the limited information I have. You will succeed. If you don't succeed, I'll buy all the copies and I'll resell them or something.
Can I get that in writing?
No, not yet. Not yet. I would love you to come on the show again, and as a progress update or a different project or in general. And now that I know what the heck is going on, we can talk in more detail.
Yeah, maybe once the Kickstarter is closer to where I estimate sometime probably around September. Might be a little bit earlier, might be a little bit later, but I think September is like the most likely projection.
Yes. Clark.
Okay.
You have answered the business stuff the best so far out of the 4 other guests that have been on the show. And I predict that you
Well,
have
I
answered...
hope I answer it the worst of all the people who come after me for their sake.
I don't think that will be the case, and I think that you'll remain in the top 3, if not the number 1, for probably 5 to 10 episodes. Most likely. Most likely. You are the farthest along out of anyone else I've talked to, at least on the business side. At least. But in general, you seem solid, okay? You seem solid.
Thank you.
$1 million valuation, minimum. Okay? I'm going to stop waving my hands. Okay.
I hope it's prophetic.
Yeah, dude. It has been an honor to have you on the show. Death, you want to say some words? Or not?
Nope.
Nope.
I am just going to be silently judging you for all eternity now.
Okay. So the normal. Okay. Let's move on to shameless plugs then.
Shameless plugs!
Shameless plugs. Plug Ocean.
Shameless plugs.
Plug it.
Yeah, you should sign up for Wild Magic Reimagined to get the emails and be the first to know when our campaign launches. And once again, you can get this lovely little coin. And for the people who have recording, I'll pull up the demo of it.
Yeah,
so you can see that.
Yeah, we'll share your screen. 1 second. 1 second here. Oh my god, I want this coin. Send me an invite or send me a link, please.
Yeah, you can go to presale.speaksandspells.com to sign up to get the invite, and then it's just $1 for that coin. You also get an invitation to our Discord, where we're going to be posting some early access playtest documents, so you can know exactly what you're going to be buying. And yeah, you can just be part of this wonderful community that we're building and get in on the ground floor. And I'd be so thrilled to have you, and I can't wait to see you.
Okay.
Clark, I'm sold. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna, obviously the normal shoutouts. Table Topics is cool. That's my brand. RPGeez. I'm working on Muscle Wizard RPG. Look it up. It's free. Coming at you soon. Everywhere. Death has a game that he never wants to plug for some reason, but talks about sometimes. Clark, anything else you want to mention? I mean, Level Up. I mean, anything else? Socials?
Yeah,
anything.
I should definitely shout out like a couple of
Shout out time.
I unfortunately don't have everyone's name off the top of my head, but I need to shout out some of the other designers that I've worked with who do amazing things. So first of all, gotta hand it to Peter Martin of Purple Martin Games, who's been in so many ways like the person who blazed the path for me, and who was the first person who talked to me about like, hey, get yourself set up with a sole proprietorship and set up your tax deductions and everything, and also just writes extremely quality work in such a high quantity as well. And then on top of that, does gorgeous layout. So you have to talk, if you're going to get one thing by him that's out right now, I would get the Manual of Adventurous Resources Complete. Fantastic. Also have to talk about Rachel Williamson, who's probably best known at this point for Paranormal Power, which raised $20,000 on Kickstarter. It's her psionic supplement.
Nice.
And is about to come out with a massive book of new combat options, including 5 new classes that she designed. So that's astounding. Lars Torgensen, extremely principled designer, one of those people who always claims that they're just designing really for what they need at their table, and then that they will happen to share stuff, but the stuff they share is also so quality. Did a really brilliant witch class, so you can find them at Roll Them Bones. And then Jesse Mullins, last person on the list I'm going to mention that should be much longer, but Jesse Mullins, probably like my most direct peer in the design space. Our journeys have progressed along really similar lines in a lot of times. She's really fascinating with Plant Witch Press because she has 2 modes, and they are cozy cottagecore and deathly creepy horror, and nothing in between. So you can go to her if you want to play as a butterfly, or if you want to play as a bloodblade. And those are your options with Jesse, who is just fantastic.
Clark, that I need to look up everything you've said this entire episode, including those people, and everyone else should as well. Anything you want to say as we sign off from episode 5 of RPGeez with Clark, What's your last name again? Clark Peterson.
Peterson.
Clark Peterson. Anything else?
I want to say thank you. You know, that's the most important thing to say. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure. It was my first time on a podcast. I had a great time, and I wish you guys success.
Glad you